The Laowa 100mm macro is a lens that delivers everything you can ever want in a macro lens. Smooth bokeh, critical sharpness, and its full frame. But you may not see it on big commercial sets anytime soon. Why? Let's dive in. This is Beyond the Specs, where we aim to go beyond everything you could read on a website and give you practical knowledge on the pieces of filmmaking equipment all of us filmmakers are looking to buy. And today we have a very special lens, the Laowa 100mm macro, a 2:1 magnification cinema macro lens that comes in E, EF, and for us, PL. Now, the Laowa 100mm macro is interesting for a couple of reasons. It's small, it's macro, it's affordable, and it's full frame. Why does that matter? Well, let's set some context, and if you aren't a fan of lengthy exposition, I suggest skipping ahead. Macro lenses are specialty lenses that are made to specifically let you focus on a subject at an extremely close distance. In the commercial world, you often only see two macro lenses on most productions, a Cooke macro or an ARRI master macro. Both are well established, well known, and well respected because they create beautiful, gorgeous macro images that provide a distinct look. In Cooke macros, you have a creamy, dreamlike look that keeps subjects mostly sharp, but provides a lovely and pleasing out-of-focus rendering that cinematographers absolutely rave about. The ARRI master macros, on the other hand, are distinct in their sharpness, and are what we often see on product commercial shoots, where every aspect of the subject needs to be sharp, but everything else needs to render beautifully when out of focus. As a cinematographer on commercial shoots, you are focused on the look. But clients often only trust name recognition, which is the second reason Cooke and ARRIs dominate the production rental market. For clients, Cookes and ARRIs are familiar. Clients might not know the nuance in image quality or why they want to choose one over the other, but clients and producers know brand names, and those lenses have top name recognition in the market. So when you submit the gear list for the project, if those names are on there, clients often feel good about the quality of what they're going to get. Now, the issue for operators is that ARRI and Cooke macro lenses aren't really something you own because they are absurdly expensive. And although macro lenses can be used outside of macro context, they're really just specialty lenses, so it may be hard to swallow the cost of these lenses if you aren't guaranteed to use them frequently. And for comparison, here's a list of things you can buy with that much money instead of an ARRI 100mm macro lens. And lastly, and maybe most importantly, most macro lenses are not built for full-frame cameras. Full-frame cameras are so in right now, with many cinematographers leaning into using full-frame camera options such as the Red Raptor or the ARRI Alexa LF or Mini LF. Macro lenses are usually built for S35 sensors, which is a sensor ARRI master macros cover. And in the full-frame macro world, there are only a few PL options. The Cooke macros and the Pancros, and outsider brands such as Tokina, Irix, and Laowa. If you throw on an adapter, you could get some Sony and Canon editions, but still, the options are few and far between. Now, that's the context, so let's get to the lens. And for the sake of this review, this was the cost of a lens when we made this review. The Laowa 100mm macro is a small lens, and by small, we mean small. The lens is about the length of a soda can, and the diameter is about the size of the inner diameter of a roll of gaff tape. It's 2.2 pounds, which is $2.73 at the time of filming, but in terms of weight, it's about as heavy as a pair of shoes. To put this in perspective, our Tokina 100mm is about the length of a water bottle and weighs enough that it should go on a diet, and the ARRI Master Macro is an absolute elephant of a lens. Safe to say, we're happy with the size and the weight of this Laowa 100mm macro, making it fantastic to put on many rigs or any rigs that require a bit of balance. While it's lightweight, the lens does not lack quality. It feels premium in its construction and built with a robust all-metal body. There's no part that feels loose, and everything is crafted in a way that makes you feel confident, with no play in the mount as you mount it in the camera. The focus and aperture rings are smooth to navigate with hard stops at the minimum and maximum focus marks. We have no complaints about how smooth these rings are, but we warn that the throw of this lens leaves just a little bit to be desired. The throw is under 3/4 of the lens, and it gets really tricky to pull focus when your subject is about 3 feet away or further. The distance between the focus marks of 3 feet to 6 feet is really short with a thin margin of error, making it tough to use in lens in places other than the detail work, unless you have a fairly precise way of pulling focus. While we do wish that there's a little bit more distance between these focus marks, Laowa really focused on the close focus, and in this small of a form factor, there just isn't really anywhere for the focus elements to go, so we can't complain. The image quality of the lens is super, but with some callouts. First, the good. The Laowa truly is a lens that punches above its weight class for a couple of reasons. The Laowa blew us away with its lack of chromatic aberration, even at close distances, and where we did see any chromatic aberration, it was hard to spot. This is great, and we feel confident in this lens's ability to handle high contrast subjects with minimal chromatic corrections needed in post. Second, the lens is impressively sharp. Now, we've always used it on commercial work around f8, which is the sweet spot, and never had any real trouble on focus because this lens is simply sharp. This makes it a great detail lens, but be warned that with the sharpness of this lens, you'll begin to question the sharpness of the things you capture. And yeah, it's trippy to be looking at a printed label and realizing that you're not out of focus. The label is just fuzzy. Which leads us to the last great quality of this lens. The textures that this lens renders is fun. It can really breathe fullness and life into the tiny details you're looking to capture. And while yes, texture is a byproduct of the sharpness, it doesn't diminish how rich your images become from macro work, especially at close focus. This was a lens specifically made for the details, and then as a 2:1 magnification macro with a minimum focus of 8 centimeters, you can truly capture those truly intimate details and textures in a way that feels natural. This does not always make great moments when filming porous people and porous things, and so interviewers beware, but the details are where the money is at. So what elements of the image quality do we not like? Well, the focus roll-off is a bit extreme, and yes, for macro work it usually always is this way, but there is something that feels a bit unnatural, especially with foreground elements that are just outside the depth of fields. They feel too out of focus, and they balloon to bokeh fairly quickly in a way that is distracting. This can easily be solved through not having foreground elements, but when it's unavoidable, we suggest try not to have these elements in any part of the frame that naturally draws the eye. Interestingly enough, the roll-off on the background elements feels more natural and pleasing. When you have such a sharp subject, the background just melts away naturally, which is why foreground elements are so distracting. Second, there is quite a bit of focus breathing, especially at close focus. Naturally, you'll get focus breathing on all macro lenses, but it is something to consider in situations where you're close to that 2:1 magnification. An ill-advised focus pull could pull a viewer out of it just because everything shifts rather dramatically. Third, there's a slight darkening of the image when you get to close focus. There isn't really anything on the lens that would let us know how many stops of light we are losing, so just be careful to try to match your exposure across your images. And lastly, and a rather big one, there is vignetting on this lens at full frame, or rather at Vista Vision frame. And I want to talk about this for a moment because our Red Raptor can shoot in larger than full frame, but our Red Raptor is one of the most popular cameras out there, and is popular because for commercial shoots where the details matter, resolution also matters. And people are going to want to shoot at the fullest frame possible, which for the Red Raptor is that Vista Vision frame. And what we found is that the macro 100mm Laowa has vignetting at that Vista Vision, and you can always crop in, but when you're trying to capture the highest quality image possible, you want to be able to capture the highest quality image possible without any distractions or defects. And that's where we think that the Laowa 100mm macro falls down. When you have clients, directors, DITs, and every person under the sun critically looking at the image you're capturing on set, you need the highest quality image possible. And when these images have any defect at all, clients will find it. That's their job, and as cinematographers, we'd much rather them annoy the art department than annoy us because the corners look dark. Yes, obviously we can punch in and do a good job of fixing it in post, but on set, you are the harbinger of the image, and in the moment, people only really care about what the image looks like now, and not what it will look like in the future. This puts us in a bit of a bind because it truly doesn't capture the fullest of frames, so the next best thing would be capture a full frame, but smaller. Unfortunately, it stops vignetting at 6K, and at that point, since we're losing resolution, we might as well be using the S35K sensor. But if we're going to go back to an S35 sensor, then we would just rent the RE Master macro. And there's a conundrum. I am limited by the use of this lens, and what I have to sacrifice to get that perfect image. Check out our comparison between the Tokina 100mm, the Laowa 100mm, and our IRIX 150mm that is coming out soon to get some details into the nuances of each lens and the advantages and weaknesses of all of them. So after that, where should I use this lens and who is this lens for? Firstly, this lens is all about the details. It's truly a remarkable lens for details, and that 2:1 magnification with an 8cm minimum focus opens up a whole new realm of perspectives and images. At close focus with a lens this sharp, you're capturing the details and textures of tiny worlds, offering insights into images we just can't see otherwise. And at 100mm, these images feel fresh and intimate, the perfect mix between close and far in image feeling. Compared to another Laowa lens with great close focus, the Laowa 24mm probe, this lens doesn't make things feel larger than life, but gives the feelings of being a privileged observer of a new world. Who is this lens ideal for? For one, commercial cinematographers that have control over their final image, or who are editing it themselves. Another one would be commercial cinematographers that love details, especially those found in watches, circuit boards, or droplets of water. Any cinematographer that wants one of those cool macro eye shots. Cinematographers that want a low-cost macro option that could be fun to play with without breaking the bank. Maybe someone who isn't willing to pay for a microscope, but is willing to use a lens to act as a microscope. And lastly, anyone who wants to just film insects. This lens is perfect for that. This lens is great, and it's turned into one of my favorite options to throw on whenever I can. And we love this lens and we are keeping it, but obviously for projects of ours where we have control of the total production. On bigger projects with picture clients, we do suggest moving to a different lens option, perhaps the RE Master Macros. The Laowa is lightweight, it's small, and it's affordable. But unfortunately, the only thing holding it back is name recognition. And in this industry, a lot of people end up judging a lens by its cover. But we love this lens and we're gonna keep using it wherever we can. That's it from Beyond the Specs. Thank you guys. Like, subscribe, comment down below what you want to see next, and keep on shooting. Take care.